Now, in 2017, during a home extension project, builders made a gruesome discovery when they found a set of skeletal remains of a man buried in a back garden in Wimbledon. Now, the identity of the male remains unknown. I'm joined by DCI Kate Kieran, who's working on identifying this individual and to try and understand what happened to him. Kate, welcome to the programme. This really is a mystery, isn't it? Firstly, just tell us how you became involved in this case.
Yeah, well, as you said, in 2017, a skeleton was found in the back garden of this house in Wimbledon. And police were called to that, and we quickly established that there was a shallow grave, 4 of them, that the body looked like it had been dismembered. So we started an investigation to try and identify that male and see how he died.
So what is the process of identification after you've discovered a body?
Well, normally we'd look at fingerprints, but obviously this was a skeleton. We'd look at DNA, but actually there was no DNA matches for this male, and we think that's because he dates back to the 60s and there was no DNA database that would have been there then. We'd also look at dental normally, and you can see the teeth. But again, without knowing who he is, we wouldn't have any sort of comparisons to make with that.
There were some clues that helped you along the way, though, weren't there? In particular, his quite distinctive appearance.
Yeah, so our forensic experts looked to this, and actually we can tell quite a lot from this male. So he would have been from the Indian subcontinent, about 5'7", between 35 and 55 years of age, quite robust in appearance in life. But also, you can see he had quite a large skull compared to sort of an average male skull compared there. So he would have been quite distinctive in appearance, we think.
And as you say, you can see the kind of holes in the skull at the top
there.
there.
And actually that's from neurosurgery. So he would have had neurosurgery, or trepanning as they call it, to relieve pressure in the brain. But even then, there's no medical records from back in the 60s that would have helped with that.
Gosh, so thinking of other clues, actually his clothes helped because some of them were preserved, they were intact, weren't they? How did that proceed, further the investigation?
Yeah, so actually that was really interesting. So there was a lot of clothing preserved. He was smartly dressed, a shirt, a silk tie, socks and shoes. So we sent these off to a clothing expert, and they looked at thread, patterns, colours and the materials and dated them to the 60s for us.
And as well as all this, you conducted your usual lines of inquiry, didn't you?
Yeah, so from a police point of view, we would have looked at when we think he was murdered and buried. So we've spoken to the remaining people who are still alive, who lived in the house at the time. They can't help. There's no DNA match between this male and that family. So all our usual lines of inquiry really didn't bring us anything.
This really is a mystery, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, you work closely with forensic anthropologists who are able to reconstruct an image of the individual. In fact, we've got the 3D image here, which I think is fascinating. Just talk us through how this was done and how it helps with the investigation.
So this was created from the skull. They build up sort of the muscles that would have been in the face and create this 3D image here. And we know from our experts that this is 100% accurate with what he looked like. So the facial features are 100% accurate. The one thing that we can't tell is the hairstyle, the exact skin tone and the exact sort of eye colour. But that's what he would have looked like, and it's obviously with what he would have been wearing at the time.
I find that incredible, actually. This is the face of the individual who was found. It must have been something quite amazing seeing the face for the first time.
Yeah, you can, and sort of looking into his eyes, it really brings it to life.
Yeah, and how long does something like this take?
This took our forensic scientists months to create for us.
So you've got this image here now. How can our viewers at home help with this case?
Well, it's about whether or not anyone is still out there who could recognise the male. Again, it would have been in the 60s, sort of in the Wimbledon area, but maybe not just limited to that area. Does anyone recognise him or hear stories of someone who might have gone missing or was murdered in that sort of area?
Yeah.
We're really hoping it jogs someone's memory.
Because at the end of the day, Kate, this is someone who was tragically murdered.
Yeah.
They could have family that are still alive now that don't know what happened to him.
No.
So any information that people might be able to give is vital, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Kate, thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch up with you again a little later on in the programme.